Hello everyone! Before this video really starts, I just want to say that I got more interested in writing this script than I thought I would, so I do talk about all 6 perks from this chapter. However, if you're only interested in Shoulder the Burden, which is the main event, so to speak, of this chapter, you can skip to the timestamp on screen right now. If you do want to listen to my thoughts on all the perks, first off, thank you, and secondly, please enjoy. When the PTB came out for the Doomed Course chapter, I immediately had people in my community discussing the potential of the perks we would be receiving. However, there was one perk that was discussed way more than any of the others. Before I get into that perk though, I just want to go over my general thoughts on the other perks as well as the chapter as a whole. The Houndmaster has 2 perks I consider really good: All Shaking Thunder and Jagged Compass. We'll start with All Shaking Thunder because it's a bit more niche but provides a ludicrous chasing ability that can destroy Survivor if they don't expect the perk. Falling from a great height is such an inconsistent action in the game. All you need to do to realize that is to use balanced landing for a few matches. Sometimes falling down a staircase will activate the perk, sometimes it won't. So out of curiosity, I went and did a little bit of research, aka checking the wiki, to figure out just how far you have to be to proc a great height. And you only need to fall 4 meters to qualify for a great height, meaning that the perk can be very easily activated on most maps. I already consider Coup de Grace as one of the best chase perks in the game. The activation for the perk is something that would already happen through the match unless you're completely dominating, in which case you don't need the extra lunge distance. This perk though has the potential to be activated very often, as well as having 16 full seconds of window for you to use it. The only trade-off being that Coup de Grace has a slightly longer lunge distance. Personally, I do think Coup is a safer choice, but don't be shocked if All Shaking Thunder becomes a solid pick on your M1 killers who don't have an anti-loot power, or more accurately, a good anti-loot power. Next is No Quarter, which I think is in a bit of a strange position. This perk is most easily compared to Merciless Storm, duh, and while Merciless Storm has a niche use, with the exception of Doctor, the perk is only strong against players that panic when there's a stream of skill checks, meaning lesser skilled or new players. Much like Merciless Storm, this perk will get value against lower skill players unless you make an entire build around it, or if you're playing as everybody's favorite CIA agent. No, not Jonah, the other one. It really is strange because I consider this perk a bit problematic, personally, because it does absolutely nothing to affect most higher skill players who don't mind being injured and they consistently hit skill checks anyways. No Quarter is the overall weakest part of the chapter in my opinion. The perk is just useless outside of small niches or if you're playing against weaker players. However, the final killer perk is Scourge Hook Jagged Compass. And while I originally thought this perk was good, I didn't realize that you aren't moving a Scourge Hook, you're creating a new one, meaning that you can have 5 or more Scourge Hooks on a map, and you get to choose the position of one of those hooks, meaning you can make the most accessible hook on the map a Scourge Hook. I think this is actually pretty much an insane perk, but I don't know how many people feel that way. With the strength of Gift of Pain and Leverage as a combo, being able to guarantee that you get to use that combo after only a few hooks, it's a very strong effect. This perk does hinge on Scourge Hooks remaining strong, which is a difficult spot to be in as a perk, but with the current meta, I think this perk is absolutely worth running in your perk rotation. But moving to the Survivor side of the chapter, we have, again, 2 perks I think are pretty solid, and one that is a bit niche, but still nowhere near as bad as other perks we've seen introduced in recent patches. Still Sight. Sorry, I had to clear my throat. I said Still Sight. We'll start with the worst of the 3. Invocation Treacherous Crows. When I first saw this perk on the PTB, I was genuinely convinced this would be one of the best Survivor perks in the game. But after I've seen it for myself and used it for myself, I think the perk is just okay. The main issue with Invocation perks is that getting real value out of them in solo queue is incredibly difficult. Counting on your teammates to not be down while you're in the basement getting freaky is like praying for the tide to not come in. They will go down, and you will get little to no value. This was especially the case with Weaving Spiders. Not only are teammates playing a 3v1 for a full minute, but solo queue players are notoriously allergic to doing generators. Why do generators when you can break that shiny Dole Totem? This isn't even talking about the way that being broken puts a massive target on your back the moment the killer sees you. However, unlike Weaving Spiders, you might be able to get consistent value out of Treacherous Crows due to the killer setting off crows fairly often while in chase. The benefit of constant wall hacks will negate the killer's ability to mind game certain tiles if they disturb a crow. It's got potential, but not enough to justify being broken for an entire trial. Next is my personal favorite perk in the entire chapter. We have Clean Break. After healing another survivor, this perk activates. Whenever someone begins healing you, you can press the active ability button to cancel the heal and become broken for the next 60 seconds. However, in that time, you will gradually heal, similar to perks like Moment of Glory and Second to Win. Similar to Treacherous Crows, this perk will leave you broken, which might as well be a giant green neon sign that says "Tunnel me please." With all these perks for survivors that incentivizes the killer to tunnel you, what if there was a perk that punished the killer for trying to tunnel you? Well, allow me to introduce to you the main event of this video, a perk that was controversial before it was even released. Shoulder the Burden. If you live underneath a rock, Shoulder the Burden allows for a survivor to essentially take a hook state for a teammate. The survivor who's on death hook will lose that hook state and trade it over to the teammate who used the perk. The perk is undeniably strong. It can be used to stop a weaker player from being tunneled out at 5 generators, as well as quickly kneecap a killer's game plan with just a simple button press. And while in situations like this, I actually think it's a pretty healthy design. Stopping a killer who has identified the weakest player and intends on getting rid of them as soon as possible is a very strong counter to an extremely common and strong playstyle, so for that, I applaud behavior. Unfortunately though, the issue arises when you realize this perk can be used in situations where the killer will just end up losing because the survivor pressed a button. Having someone dead hook or preferably dead with 1 or 2 generators left is incredibly important as a killer. However, all that being removed because the Legacy Dwight just took the hook stage away from his teammate, putting the hook stages in the survivor's favor again, and immediately deleting any pressure the killer had snowballed into, it's gross, and it's just another example of perks that are incredibly strong in a survive with friends, while mediocre in solo queue, due to lack of communication. Perks like Reassurance, We're Gonna Live Forever, Adrenaline, and many more I'm sure you can think of, benefit from having a bit of setup from a full team communicating. While they are all still usable in solo queue, it's much easier to get consistent value with your friends. I think this will be the spot that Shoulder the Burden will eventually land in after the hype of the perk dies off. It will be incredibly strong, but people love using chase perks, which I consider an issue for most Survivor players, and I think at some point I'll talk about it. However, without getting into the issues of that discussion, historically, Survivors have prioritized chase perks and selfish perks, for lack of a better term. While on the Swift, you'll see builds dedicated to keep each other alive. Circle of Healing is my personal perk I always run when I'm in a Swift, but rarely use in solo. I hope this point I'm trying to make is easy to understand, but in case I rambled on for a little too long, let me sum it up. I think that Shoulder the Burden in its current state is probably overtuned. However, I do think it will be a perk that you see only being used by Swifts that really want to get the 4-man out. This will especially be the case if the perk gets a substantial nerf. My personal suggestion for the perk is to completely disable it after 3 gens have been completed. At 2 gens left, the killer needs to get someone out of the match. One perk should not be strong enough to completely eliminate the pressure the killer has, especially since all 4 survivors can have the perk on, making it more difficult to get a proper read on who is on death hook and who isn't. With this all out of the way, let me know what you think of Shoulder the Burden in the comments below, and if you think it needs to change or not. If you enjoyed the video, please do consider leaving a like, because it helps me out quite a bit. If you're interested in more discussion content, I have a whole lot of videos at this point that you can watch. Subscribe if you'd like to stay caught up. The link to my Twitch and my Discord are both in the description below if you'd like to hang out with me, not in person, but you know what I mean, like live, I guess. With all that out of the way, my name is Kasir, and I hope I'll see you next time. Bye bye, and have a great night.